Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Friday SafeDefend Live. I'm joined by our superstar, Craig. Hey, Craig, what's going on, man?
Phil, how are you doing today? I see you
Well,
have a different background.
I'm sitting just outside Springfield, Missouri. I'm coming back from a business trip, and Dave is in Memphis. Actually, that's not true. Dave's in wherever Old Miss is, whatever town Old Miss is in. His lovely daughter is a freshman at Ole Miss, and so
Oh wow.
he's traveling. Everybody's traveling. Whole crew's traveling. So,
Well, you're in Springfield. You should say hi to my son, who's at Missouri State right there.
oh wow, yeah.
How about
I
that?
just went past Springfield he's about 10 miles back that away, but
Very nice. Very
yeah,
nice.
yeah. But hey, it's ironic. I'm sitting in this rural environment because I know that's kind of what we want to talk about today are rural schools, rural school districts,
You bet.
kind of some unique challenges that they face that our urban schools don't. So speak to that a little bit and just kind of help
Absolutely.
educate folks on what those challenges are.
Well, one of the things when I took this job, we don't necessarily have territories or things like that we try to cover, but somebody had mentioned Nebraska, and I grew up in a tiny town by Sidney, Nebraska. It was actually called, now you're going to think less of me, Gurley, Nebraska, Gurlay. So I was a girly man, I guess you could say. And it
I've
was a
actually, I've
population.
actually, I've actually driven through Gurley,
Is
Nebraska,
that right?
like in 1987, 88, right in
Yeah.
there.
If you'd have blinked, you'd have missed it. But all those rural towns, they all have something in common. They have a railroad and they have a big grain elevator going through
Yep,
them. And
yep,
they've got the entire country is fed by the farmers in those little rural towns right there.
yeah,
And so it's very typical that a school district won't have a police officer in that city, let alone, I mean, it's in the county, but that school, they don't have a resource officer or anything. The deputy sheriff would be 30, 40 minutes away. And potentially, if something bad were to happen in a school, those school districts are literally on their own for 30 minutes. And I think we've talked plenty on here about how the first 15 seconds determines the next 15 minutes. But
yep.
also, most of these awful things that take place all are over within 3 minutes. So that's a real wake up call, I think, right there. And so as I'm starting to call on some of these smaller schools, and they find out that yes, we have a notification module that's in the hallway, but we also have a safe that goes in the teacher's classroom. So the teacher can close the door, lock it, open the safe with her fingerprint, and get out some items to defend the classroom, some pepper gel, some other things like that, a baton, a strobe light. I tell you what, Phil, I didn't know this, but that strobe light messes you up about as anything. Those guys did that to me when I walked in the door the other day. It took me 5 seconds to regain my wherewithal.
Well, that's one of the strobe lights have been used with law enforcement and in the military and select units for years because it is something disorients people when you hit them with those strobes and really take because it's what you're looking for. You're not looking for a 5 minute debilitating. What you're looking for is for that second for
You
you to
bet.
do something, right?
Absolutely.
You're just trying to get a moment where you can do something, protect yourself. And so, yeah, it's very effective. People don't realize the simple things, how effective they can be.
Well, and so one of the other items in there is a pepper gel, not a pepper spray. It's a
Yep.
pepper gel spray, I guess, technically. That thing will shoot across the room with a real heavy stream. And one of our guys, one of our salesmen, I don't remember quite the story, but he just got a tiny whiff of it at a training. And I don't remember what all went down. The poor guy wheezed and cried. And he said he couldn't wait to go to bed because he wanted to wake up without his eyes burning. And almost all the police I talk to say, tase me 50 times. Just don't put that pepper gel in my face.
Yeah, the worst part of basic training years ago, many years ago, when I went in the military, it wasn't the drill instructors. It wasn't the lack of sleep. It was that day that we had to go do nuclear, biological, and chemical warfare training, which was a fancy way of telling us they're going to put us in a gas chamber, have us release the gas, have us count to 10, and then clear our gas mask on, clear it, and then go out. Because if you've never experienced burning, like I mean, there's nothing quite like it. So it's very
Yeah.
effective. And the fact that it's gel is important because you're really reducing the possibility of of innocents getting hit, kiddos getting hit with it, folks like that. You're not eliminating it, but you're really reducing it.
Yeah, and in fact, I even saw a video. It was in Seattle. It was an active shooter in a college in Seattle.
Yeah.
And I don't
Yeah.
know if it was a counselor or a professor, but he ended up spraying the guy with that gel, and that knocked him down. And then he was able to jump on him with another guy, and they held him down until the police came. And I thought, my God, thank goodness,
I saw that video too. That's one of the most amazing videos. I know when that incident happened, it was out there a little bit, but I wish more and more people could see that video. That's something we ought to put up and post, because it is absolutely prototype, in my opinion. And I'm talking about how calm the gentleman maintained. He was in control. He didn't panic. You knew that he had thought this through. You could tell that just by the way he did it. Now, there was other things that would have made the situation much better, but the fact that he handled it the way he did unquestionably saved lives that day.
Oh, I think dozens and dozens of lives.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
no doubt. No doubt.
That was a weird situation. And then I suppose the last thing we should bring up, as a teacher, I just came out of the classroom a few months ago.
Yeah.
I would like my door locked. I would like to have that safety cabinet. But also, if something bad happens, and I don't necessarily mean an active shooter, maybe a tornado, maybe, whatever. If you're a hurricane, if you're on the coast, we have all this first aid gear in there. And I think that's incredibly important too. A stop the bleed kit. We have tourniquets. We have things of that nature, because in a rural area, it's very possible you're going to need a few minutes to wait before the volunteer fire department and the EMT guys show up. And so I think that's important as well.
Well, it's real important. You talk about the tourniquet, Craig. Bottom line, I don't know if you've ever applied a tourniquet before, ever needed to, or been trained on. I know you've been trained on a tourniquet, but
trained, yeah, mm-hmm.
Yeah, but a lot of people, unfortunately, when they're shot in the leg, there's arteries everywhere in that leg, mm-hmm. and if you get hit in the wrong spot, you can bleed out from a leg injury.
Yeah,
I mean, and so having something as simple as a professionally manufactured tourniquet. Now, you could do it with a belt. You could do, there's
mm-hmm.
there's different ways to do it, but I'd rather have a tourniquet that was being applied to me.
Yeah.
And so, having that tourniquet there, those first aid kit, they're not just. I think sometimes people think, well, why first aid? I mean, you got to get you got the police there, but that doesn't mean you can't treat somebody immediately to stop the bleed, because that's typically where we lose people. It wasn't that long ago, there was an officer shot, and he applied a tourniquet to himself, and saved his own life.
Yes.
And so there's usages for that. And then, of course, what I'll say before we get off here is, man, it's so important that we're training on these things, right? We got to understand, that these are the tools, help them understand these are the scenarios when those would be used. That strobe light, how do you hit that? Does what's the perfect, because in a perfect situation, you kill the light and hit the strobe light, right? Try to get it as dark
absolutely as possible. You bet.
But the gel spray, I'm not saying practice shooting the gel at people, but I am saying understand where you want to aim, how do you want to hold it? You want to hold it out of the way, just stuff like that. And then the baton, I think there's I think some people think, well, we got a baton, and this is one of those, you can break it down batons. I actually have one in my truck, mm-hmm. but you can, because again, you're looking for a split second, right? You're looking for a split second, and the only time. We're not saying take the baton and go look for the active shooter.
Right.
That's not what we're saying. We're saying here's something with the gel, with this. There's also flex cuffs mm-hmm. in the cabinet. So if the situation presents itself where that person's been put on the ground, and you can safely, cuff them in some way. I don't care if it's an ankle and one arm, but if there's a way where you can get them restrained in some way, that's a tool that's there as
Absolutely.
well. Don't go looking for them, but if they show up in your room, you're going to have tools that'll give you an opportunity to protect yourself and those babies.
Yeah. And maybe we can end with this, Phil. The last thing I like in my tiny little town, it was 30 minutes before a deputy sheriff would be there.
Yeah.
And if it was going to be one deputy sheriff.
Yeah.
And that scares me a bit if I have kids there. On our phone, as soon as we put the finger in the module, and all of a sudden we go to lockdown, every single person on the phone list gets a phone call. Well, guess what? We can put our volunteer fire department guys or whomever. Maybe we have some veterans in our community. It's very possible we have several veterans in our community, and they are going to live down the street. They're going to live across the street from the school, and they might be able to get in that building and help save lives, well in front of 30 minutes. And I think that's important too in a small town.
Yeah, and I think people got to understand, if you live in an urban city, you hear that and you might go, oh, I don't know. But no, listen, this is a different world. We're talking about worst case scenario. We're talking about life and death. We're talking about there's unarmed people in this school that need somebody to help them.
Yep.
And, I think, where I live, it's not as rural as Gurley, Nebraska, but it's rural, right? And our county sheriffs, I think we'll have 3 people on duty at any one time to cover. It's an astronomical square mileage. I mean, it's just insane. So, we don't know when these are going to happen, obviously. If we did, like tornado warnings, then we wouldn't have the fatalities, right? Because we just get everybody out of the building and we wouldn't have get a warning and secure everybody and we'd be okay. Unfortunately, that's not what we're dealing with. So it's imperative that because since we don't know, they might be on the other side of the county when this kicks off.
Absolutely.
On a call, And so, it takes unorthodox responses to extreme situations sometimes. And I know that's what you're talking about, but our rural communities, I would just encourage everybody, if you're in a rural community, please reach out. There's never been a more critical time to plan for these unfortunate kind of situations, these tragic situations, than right now. And each one of us have to do our fair share. If you're in a rural community, and you have questions about how can I get more education, get more information so that I can talk intelligently to my school board, to my superintendents, to the people in our community about, hey, have we looked at this? Do we need this? Please reach out to us at SafeDefend. You can hit it up at Craig, give your email address real quick.
It's just craig.deaver@safedefend.com, but you can get online at safedefend.com and you'll see the product and things like that. And we'd be happy to get going with you. Yeah.
Do a demo, get them some written material. Do whatever. If you need training in your rural schools as well, please reach out to us. Craig, I want you to have a wonderful weekend, a blessed weekend. I know you were on the road a lot last week. And so enjoy the weekend. Hopefully you're going to be home this weekend.
You bet, man.
All right, brother.
You as well. Take care.
Thank you, man. Take care, everybody.
Bye-bye.